Hey everyone, Dan here. We are just before market close on Friday, June 18th. Today we're going to take a look at Upstart. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And please also drop a comment below. This stock ticker idea came from a comment in the YouTube videos and was helped along by last night. One of the podcasts that I listened to had Upstart as an advertiser, and I thought, oh, I know that company. So feel free to comment below with tickers or your own ideas or context or additional info you might have on anything. It definitely helps myself and helps others that watch the video. And also sharing the videos helps a ton too. Folks are asking how they can help spread the word, literally just by spreading the word. Post them on Twitter, on Facebook, on Reddit, whatever you might, wherever you might share things, that definitely goes a long way. All right, so we're going to be purely looking at the chart for UPST today. And this is basically, since its inception, this 6-month, 4-hour chart. I mean, we just have to back it up a little bit to get to, I guess, it looks like 1214 or so, 1214, 1216, something like that at IPO'd. The first thing that kind of jumps out to me from a TA perspective is this like clunky, but, relatively real up channel that it's been in. I mean, it's just such a wide range. I mean, you have 45 down here, and then you have this big run up to 153. So like tripling, from the bottom of the channel to the top in just one swing. It wasn't like it hit the bottom of the top several times and then got that high. It was one swing. So I feel like there's essentially like some sub channels within within this one larger channel. So I don't think that this will hold, for a super long time. But while it does, it has hit the bottom. It bounced off once, twice, 3-4 times. So if it comes down to the bottom here and maybe dips down to, who knows, about 105 to 110, something like that, it might give a good bottom of the channel dip buy opportunity that you can then ride up to, who knows, 200, 205, something like that, and take your profit. If it continues to do the same crazy swings from top to bottom, I don't know, and eventually all channels break, but it's this is quite a wild one, quite a clunky channel indeed. But if it's there, I think it's worth playing, and I just wanted to point it out in case you wanted to consider it. But let's kind of back it up here and see what price points we can extract that would help with future potential bounce zones. If it does come down, more immediate support zones if it does dip a little bit, and then of course upper price targets and areas at which the price might rise, hit some resistance, and then dip down a little bit so that you can take a dip buy into price strength, which we will talk about a little bit more in a second. And apologies if you've seen a bunch of my videos recently when I always mention dip buying into price strength. I just think it's a really good strategy. I think it would help a lot of people not chase stocks. And trust me, I still chase stocks. I just notice it more prevalently when I do it, and I'm, sort of hit myself on the hand and say, stop that. But, bad habits are hard to break, and there's something about chasing stocks that seems indelible to the human nature. So, it gets everyone. But what I'm talking about dip buying into price strength is basically we have all these upper price targets where we say, okay, most likely as it moves through these price zones on the upside, it'll probably feel resistance at several of these points, and it'll also, if it does get over them, it'll probably have really good support if it does need to come back down to it and retest. So what you look for it to do is to come up to one of these upper price zones, hit near it, or bounce off of it and start to come down. So you notice that it's feeling the resistance of that, and then you say, okay, so it should have some support at this 136.84. So maybe about 137, 137.50, something like that. You start to average in, maybe one ATR above the price zone itself, if you want to try to be a little bit more calculated in your approach. And then, you look for price strength around that area to buy into. There is always a potential, if it's blown through a couple of resistance zones, that it does come down to test the first one that it blew through. So just, watch yourself. Either be willing to dip buy down into here, or be willing to take a quick stop loss and re-entry, or just say, I'm not going to buy in until I see a show of price strength, which could be a green candle, 2 green candles, something like that. In order to say, okay, I think that it's going to, this is just like more evidence with, to me that it's potentially going to bounce here. So that's what I would use the upper price targets for if you're looking to take a position or add to a position. Alternately, you could take any of them as take profit zones, as trim zones, where you're going to sell a portion of your position and keep the rest for the next price target, so on and so forth. So, and obviously on the ones below, you would hope that those hold as support if it does come down and need to test any of those zones. And if it does dip down to any of the further ones, you could look at those as potential really good dip buy opportunities, because that's, $17, $18 off of where it is right now. So that could give you a nice dip buying opportunity if it holds that support zone and shows real price strength or real bounce potential as it hits there. So that's what I look for at the price target front. And the other thing I would sort of pay attention to as well, it's working its way down the channel. I do think the channel, even though it's kind of clunky, is probably the most important thing. I do think also it kind of was stuck under this pretty steep downtrend right here. And I would look for it to continue to build distance from it. So even if that's kind of sideways, getting itself away from that previous down zone or downtrend will help a lot. Sorry, I'm so retentive about the colors of these things. But just know that sometimes when this does happen, it tends to curl back down toward there. And if it does do that, that's where I'd look for it to catch on the 116.94 level, the 106.09 level, and or just the bottom of the channel, which to me has shown previously, even though these are wild swings, that's the only thing that makes me really hesitant about it. It's like, it's not often where you catch a channel where if you dip by it at the bottom, you're going to quadruple your money by the top over and over and over again. I mean, here 80 to 190, so there's 2.5 times about. I mean, it's just these spreads are really, really nutty. But stocks with big range and big volatility definitely help. In terms of volume, I didn't actually check this before. Curious. Okay, so it does have decent volume. It's about on par today with, what it typically is. So about 5 million a day, more or less. So that's, decent amounts of volume coming into the stock. But yeah, that's what I would look for on the charting front. On the indicator side of things, RSI just coming out of oversold territory and didn't quite get to the bottom of the channel, even though it was oversold. But we've seen this kind of previously. It was overbought here, but it wasn't really close to the top of the channel. And then it just sort of, and even here, it was way overbought on the RSI and still wasn't toward the top of the channel. And finally, when it did get there, it was still stretched into overbought, but it wasn't even as high as it was in this range, actually. So that's interesting. But it does tend to bounce off of this oversold territory, it looks like. But it can get there without even reaching the bottom of the channel. I think part of this is just, that spread being so wide that we were talking about, the dollar amount from the top to the bottom of the channel and vice versa, being so spread out, that it leaves a lot of room for a bunch of overboughts and oversolds in between. So it does look like it does run quite a bit from overbought to oversold. So that could be another way to think about playing this one, is dip buy on the overboughts and then take profit on the oversold. But something to look at if you want an additional way to try to decipher or play this one. It is in a nice bullish movement right now that's sort of kind of winding down a little bit. You see a few red candles here, so it is kind of tapering off a little bit, but still has a lot of juice if it wants to just pick it back up and proceed. And it is well under the baseline since this big sell-off, well under the baseline, so there's a ton of room to run back up. But But, this is just additionally supportive of that idea that there can be this wild swing from the bottom of the channel to the top. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on this one. Actually, I appreciate whoever mentioned it to me, because this is quite an erratic one, and those ones are really good for, obviously, 1.5, 2x, 3x, 4xing your money in sort of like a systematic way. But again, keep in mind those patterns always eventually break. So who knows? It could be breaking right now. We just don't know it yet. But just bear that in mind. None of these things are 100% for always and forever. Everything needs to be evaluated in its own time, and just keep in mind that it always breaks. Okay. That'll do it for this one. I appreciate you watching, and I hope you have a nice weekend, and I will see you in the next video.